Welcome to the Freight Project podcast, brought to you by Cerasis, a North American third-party logistics company providing shippers transportation management technology and solutions.
On today's The Freight Project podcast episode, I welcome Jerel Byrd, longtime development manager at Cerasis, to talk about the role transportation management technology plays in giving control back to the shipper. As with any first-time guest, you'll get to know Jerel's background as an expert in transportation management technology and how Jerel's been pivotal to the ongoing development of the technology solutions Cerasis provides to shippers. Jerel will first share why he thinks having a dedicated in-house technology team at Cerasis or at any 3PL is an advantage to shipper customers and our company at large. Jerel then shares the history of the development of Cerasis transportation management technology, briefly touching on our e-commerce and final mile tech solutions, as well as our recent parcel to LTL rate comparison capability. Further, Jerel then goes into more detail about the current work his transportation management technology team is doing on our forthcoming final mile and white glove services capability within our TMS, the Cerasis Rater. Jerel and I then wrap up the discussion on transportation management technology to talk about, from a technology perspective, what makes Cerasis unique, how e-commerce has shaped LTL and truckload shipping practices, as well as his thoughts on the role of blockchain and the future of transportation management technology. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Freight Project Podcast. Well, hello, Jerel, and thanks for coming on to the Freight Project Podcast. As we do with all first-time guests, can you please tell us about your role at Cerasis and a little bit about your career?
You bet. So I currently serve as the manager of software development here at Cerasis. I have a team that's responsible for all of our internal applications within the company. So we maintain our TMS as well as all of our internal accounting systems, any application that's used by customers, partners, anybody, you name it, we maintain it. So I've been in software development for some time, roughly late 90s. So I was there before the internet boom. So I go up and down. I started out working in microprocessors, working in video transmitters for the broadcast industry, and then slowly moved into Windows and web design. Prior to that, I was in the Air Force for 6 years.
All right. So you've been in technology since I was watching Nickelodeon as a kid. Good to know. And roughly after Al Gore invented the internet, you took advantage of it by investing your skills into technology. I think that's a pretty smart move, and it's paid off pretty well for you as you now work here at Cerasis, manning our technology development. And we can't thank you enough for that role. But that's why we have you on here today to kind of talk about the heart of today's discussion and why you are uniquely qualified as the head of our development for the last decade, folks, to give us insights into the role of today's transportation management technology scene and how it's empowering shippers to gain greater control over their freight spend, get greater mode capability, and, of course, the ability to reduce costs. Now, we know a lot of 3PLs out there, freight brokers, whatever you want to call them, they use an outside TMS to provide to their customers. But at Cerasis, we decided from day one that we would have developed all of our stuff in-house for the most part, our core technology. So why do you see having a dedicated technology team as an advantage to our shippers' customers and our company really at large?
So for us, I would say it's all about flexibility. So I hear a lot of times customers come to us because the current TMS they're using either doesn't have any functionality or it's going to be 12 to 18, 24 months before that functionality gets added. So for us, by having our own TMS, we can respond to market changes and customer requests at a much faster rate. So we release at a pretty fast clip. So we release weekly. So every Thursday, we release an update to the system, whether it's just a couple of bug fixes or some pretty major system changes. Every Thursday, we have a release. Last year alone, we had 44 planned releases. Taking into account holidays, vacation time, some of those things we skip. But 44 weeks out of 52, we had a release last year, plus dozens of just customer fixes and hot fixes sprinkled in over the time. So we had well over 50 updates to the system last year alone.
Yeah, so that responsiveness and flexibility is key. And I remember, when I first started, I haven't been here as long as you have, but about 7 years ago, it was just a couple of developers and that got it done, but the pace of technological change in our space has absolutely grown exponentially. And we'll discuss some of that here in a minute and the reasons why. But now you have a team of developers that is able to, do that amount of releases. I happen to call them Jerel's Army because you've built it from the ground up. It's now a very impressive size. But can you share a bit of that history with our listeners of our technology here at Cerasis, maybe specifically the TMS, the Cerasis Raider, and the various capabilities that your team has added over the years?
So when I started with the company in 2006. The Raider was written in classic ASP, which Microsoft, even in those days, was trying to get rid of. Still haven't done a good job of that today. It's still out there, but they had been trying to kill it with the release of .NET. So I was brought on board to help upgrade the applications from classic ASP to .NET so we could have the better development platform. That was our first big change that we added. That was a couple-year rewrite to switch all of the old code into the new application, which has given us a great amount of flexibility. But over the years, we've been able to add technology like multi-stock truckload support, small package support. We can support a lot of the crazy pricing structures that carriers throw at us. So we have a pretty advanced rating engine in the background. So we can support all the accessorials the carriers have thrown at us, the state-to-state matrix they've thrown at us, all the different pricing that allows us to give our customers the best possible price. We can support with a lot of those changes over the years.
Well, that's pretty fantastic. Again, just speaks to the responsiveness and our in-house team's ability to respond to that. Now, there are a lot of systems out there. There's different types of transportation management systems. There's different types of new technology that's coming out all the time that has all these, buzzwords. But, we talk often as salespeople, as marketers, even the journalists out there that I know that talk about the industry and cover it on the day-to-day, who are, talking about the billions of dollars coming into freight tech over the last couple of years. We like to talk of ourselves as a technology company first, but maybe everybody's saying that. So what would you say from a technology standpoint, how does Cerasis differentiate ourselves from everybody else who might be saying the same thing?
So for me, I think it boils down to our ability to integrate with other systems. We have spent a lot of time setting up applications that can communicate with different ERP systems. So we have a standard set of products that allows us to connect with the NetSuites of the world, the SAPs of the world, Dynamics 365. So this allows basically our customers to have all of their orders in their ERP system. They transfer them to us, process the shipment, and then we write any data back. So any rates, tracking information, anything they need in real time. The application we've developed is pretty slick. I'm proud of it, but I'm also biased. But we can have it set up on a customer's side typically within 10, 12, 15 hours and have the communication and data flowing back and forth between our system and the customer's ERP.
Well, and that really helps what I would say is another huge initiative that many shippers and supply chain leaders are undertaking today. And that's the ability to get more visibility, to have, a single pane of glass for, maybe your shipping modes. And, we provide that quite a bit on all of your surface transportation modes. And one of the things that I think is also increasing and maybe a change for the transportation world in the world of integrations is the use of API. Now, we've always had, EDI out there, but there's this big conversation about the growing use of API. Can you tell us a little bit more about our API capabilities and some of the things we've done at Cerasis?
So from a standpoint of what can customers consume from us, we have a full suite of APIs that allow our customers to get most of the functionality that we have on the screens. We can't expose all of it through the API because sometimes it's just not intuitive enough. Screen really helps, but our standard set of APIs, you can rate, ship, track, schedule pickups, get any invoicing information, plus lots of other options that are out there. So we have a developers portal that allows you to go in and grab code samples. We have code samples in all the major languages. All the documentation is out there. One of the things that I get frustrated about when I try to consume an API is how limited the documentation is, or how lacking it is. So we've worked really, really hard to make sure that it's well documented. People can understand it. There's code samples, and we provide customers a dedicated resource whenever they are trying to integrate with us, so they have a person to go to get questions answered. So we've had customers here in the recent past use our API to integrate with SAP and they wrote their own interface for it and pull in directly into SAP. So that's from our standpoint, from an ability to consume APIs. Then we connect to all of the major LTL carriers using all of their APIs. We connect to various other vendors to do different things. We can connect to scale manufacturers. Basically gives us a lot of flexibility to pull documents in, pull weights in, pull dimensions in. All of that was just a couple of clicks, and the customer has that information at their fingertips.
That's pretty powerful, and probably means you've been working with a lot more tech folks at our customers' corporations, as I'm assuming over the years. That's increased than previously.
Yeah, we deal a lot more with a lot of technical folks on our customers as we get into newer markets and larger customers. Then you have more technical people that come in and they need more and more things. So it allows us to add our API and expand on it. So yeah, a lot more interaction between us and our customers and our carriers, for that matter. We reached out to different carriers, and carriers have reached out to us to ask opinions on APIs and what can they do to help assist with making data interchange a lot better.
Well, that just speaks to the technology leadership that I see and the differentiations you just spoke about here that we offer at Cerasis. And, really honing in on that, technological capability and the changes over the years at Cerasis. I know one of the exciting projects that your team is currently working on is a final mile solutions that supports white glove services and add-ons. So why would you say Cerasis is looking to develop that into our technological capability?
So out of all the buzzwords that's out there, I think final mile is one that's going to come to fruition faster than most of the others. I think it's the next great frontier out there as far as what's going to need a shipping solution. So 5 years ago, no one considered buying a couch off of the internet and having it delivered to your house, right? That didn't exist. So today, if you can't do that, you get frustrated. So it's becoming more and more prevalent out there in the marketplace. So we feel we're going to have a unique solution that's going to allow our customers to have an affordable option, as well as something that's pretty easy to use to take care of some of those final mile solutions.
Yeah, right along those LTL and parcel moves that they're making. And yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of, I would say this year, 2019, I've seen more about final mile than anything out there. And they're saying whoever can help shippers figure this out are going to be positioned quite well to help the marketplace. And obviously our customers are asking for it. We're getting a lot of interest, so we're doing it. And, along with that final mile, naturally, and you mentioned it in your answer there previously about shopping carts. And, as you know, and I don't know if the listeners know, but we support several different shopping carts that, works with the Cerasis Radar RTMS. So since you've really been in technology for more than 2 decades, or about 2 decades, I'm trying to make you older than you are. And as you've been at Cerasis since 2006, you've really seen e-commerce change over the years, especially in the truckload and LTL side. So can you tell us a little bit about that change and our history with e-commerce?
Yeah, so we released our first shopping cart extension about 5 years ago. I think we were a bit early to the market. I don't think the market was ready for an LTL shopping cart. We felt like it was ready, but I think we were a little early 5 years ago. We kind of launched it and kind of had a thud. It didn't really land very well. But in the past few years, we're seeing more and more customers want their LTL rates to appear on their shopping cart. So I would say we're up to a couple of those per week that we see come in, where somebody makes an inquiry, downloads our extensions and puts something up there. So this has caused us to expand into a lot of other carts. We started out with just Magento 5 years ago. So now we're in Magento, WooCommerce, Shopify, BigCommerce, just to name a few. So we have several customers who have custom carts also, so they can use our API and integrate into their own custom homegrown carts. So we're seeing more and more of that as well. So we're just now getting that space as everybody has become accustomed to buying off of Amazon and having the ease at which they can get the pricing and have everything show up at their door. People are starting to expect that on the B2B side. So we're really seeing e-commerce pick up. And then you add in the final mile aspect of that, and you add in how that's going to play a role. It's going to really extend what happens on the e-commerce side.
Yeah. So I think, the mix of the two really positions our current customers really well, who are currently LTL shippers, but they're going to direct to consumer more and more, especially in that furniture space. But I have to assume that as Amazon impacts our personal lives or other retailers who match Amazon's capability, our expectations, even in the B2B world or when we buy heavier things, are not going to be much different. So we've positioned our customers and future customers well to continue to give that experience, no matter if it's a B2B buyer or a personal buyer that needs it at their house. So I know, kind of speaking in the technology space, and as you're at the center of technology and transportation, we joined an organization called Blockchain in Transportation Alliance a couple years ago, and it's all around blockchain. And no matter where you go, you see blockchain. And yeah, I think it's a bit overhyped in the marketplace, but obviously something you got to keep an eye on. So given that, what are your thoughts as someone, really developing this technology heads down in actual solutions that happen today? Is there a future in blockchain?
Yeah, so that's one of those things. You can't go anywhere without reading something about blockchain. Everybody's got a blockchain. If you're not doing blockchain, then you're doing it wrong. I think the technology itself has potential. I think it can solve lots of problems, but we also have to be honest. We operate in an industry that still holds EDI as the gold standard, and we still have difficulty setting up EDI. We still have a lot of our carrier partners who use a third-party EDI vendor. So we have 40-year-old technology that we struggle to get working today. So I don't think blockchain is going to immediately come to pass and be our savior. We're staying up to date with everything. We're on the part of beta. I've talked to several people at different conferences. We've had lots of communications about it, but we're not really putting it into our TMS just now. There's so many different standards out there. I mean, Amazon just released a blockchain application in AWS. So they just released that. So they're on the bandwagon. There's lots of them out there, but I still feel that we're 8 to 10 years away before you start seeing any widespread benefits of that technology in the space itself.
Okay. Well, then let's get a little more realistic then, because you are in the middle of, the carriers and the shippers. As a 3PL ourselves, who offers the great transportation management technology that your team works on day in and day out, you kind of really hear, I think, what might be happening next based on real market feedback, not just buzz in the media, right? And so if it's not blockchain immediately, what do you think the big changes you see that shippers, 3PLs, and carriers will be focused on in the next 5 to 10 years?
So two things to me come to mind. ELDs, right? Everybody knows ELDs out there. The mandates have all gone in. Those are all ready for everybody to use. And the tons of information being gathered out there. I think all the ELD aggregators that are out there, as more and more of those come online and grab that wealth of data that's available, I think that's going to have a huge impact in how we track truckloads and the data we can see with truckload as far as driver hours, how much time is left for that driver, where is the driver. All of that information is going to be play a huge role for us here in the near future. I also go back to API. I think API is going to have a bigger impact than blockchain here in the short term, because as you can expose APIs and more people connect together, then we can exchange data more seamlessly. So carriers are starting to expand their APIs. Partners, ERP systems are starting to open up. I mean, a year and a half ago, SAP didn't have the ability for you to integrate with them as easily as they do today. NetSuite's API has gotten easier. So I think APIs are going to be one of the things where we have a lot more to gain in the near term as people realize, hey, this internet thing is going to stick around, and I should probably have some sort of an API that's able to be used.
Yeah, I mean, and absolutely. And I think when I came into the industry from a marketing standpoint, and then I talked to some of my friends who work in the financial world, and they're like, what? You guys don't even yet fully use API 100%? I'm like, well, that's the trucking industry, and everybody says each industry, is kind of similar. No one's unique. But I got to tell you, this transportation industry, after 7 years in it, and maybe even yourself after 13 years in it, it truly is different. It takes a little bit of time for things to change. It does clearly sound like it's speeding up pretty quickly in the last few years, technologically. And so it's really important that you are in the center of that. And, you bring so much value to our customers, and you offered such great insights here of the reality of technology today, and even some insights into where we're going in the next few years. So thank you, Jerel, for being on the Freight Project podcast. Undoubtedly, we will have you on again in the future, I'm sure, as you get your head up from the hours and hours of work your team is putting into the final mile solution. I know that takes up a lot of your time. So I appreciate you giving us a few here for the listeners of the Freight Project podcast.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. And for all of our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in each week, and we'll see you on the next episode.